symposium. I cordially invite Dr. Hemantha Pereira, who is a senior consultant obstetrician and gynecologist and a past president of the Menopause Society of Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka College of Obstetrician and Gynecologists as the chairperson of the session. And I would also like to invite Ms. Anushika Amarasinghe, who is a lawyer by profession with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in law, focusing on women and children's rights, both obtained from University of Colombo, the Partnerships and Advocacy National Analyst for UNFPA Sri Lanka, as the moderator of the session. Please come to the stage to take on the proceedings.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome all of you to this panel discussion. And at the outset, I would like to invite the Assistant Representative of UNFPA Sri Lanka for some opening words. Dr. Diana.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Pattu, President of the Menopause Society, and guest of honor, Professor Marianne Lumsden, all foreign delegates, guests, and renowned subjects, experts. I can see some of my teachers also here. Members of the Menopause Society and Ministry of Health officials. It's a pleasure to be with you here today at this important dialogue on a topic that often overlooked, the experience of women undergoing menopause during their most productive years. Menopause is a natural stage of life, yet we rarely acknowledge how it affects women's health and well-being, productivity, as well as economic participation. Globally, we know that addressing gynecological and menopausal health can have tangible economic benefits. A UK study estimated addressing these issues could lead 1.5 billion sterling pounds increase in economic productivity annually if women are supported to remain employment. In Sri Lanka, women make up 52% of the population, yet labor force participation among women remains 32%. Of this, we have 6.4 out of 32%, 6.4 women are at the menopausal age between 45 to 55. Many women between 45 to 55 managing households, building businesses, leading teams, and stepping into leadership roles while they are dealing with the menopausal symptoms that impact their performances. they are at the peak of their careers or stepping into the leadership roles. Yet physical and emotional symptoms of menopause can deeply affect their performance, their job satisfaction, and even whether they stay in the workforce or not will be decided upon those situations. This is why UN's Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, UNFPA, we believe that menopause is just not only a health issue. It is a sexual, reproductive health and rights issue. This is why UNFPA is supporting developing national menopause guideline, working with Menopause Society and the Ministry of Health. UNFPA is engaging closely with private sector and Board of Investment to set up well-being centers in 4 export development zones across the country. By creating menopause-friendly workforce, employers have transformative role to play in reducing stigma and improving well-being. By offering flexible working arrangement, educating staff and management about menopause, and ensuring access to medical leave and wellness services, they can create supportive environment for women in midlife. These measures benefit entire workplace, leading to improved retention and higher and greater productivity. This is time for us to bring menopause and midlife women's health into a spotlight, because most of the maternal and child health and what we call is a popular topics are being discussed, but menopause is not very much focused even in our large paradigm of health. That's why we thought this dialogue, UNFPA hopes to drive impact by discussing policy recommendation to make our workplaces and labor sector more gender responsive, enabling to women contribute significantly to Sri Lankan's economic development. Because otherwise we are losing most of the skilled and experienced labor force. Together, we can build the economy that truly values the support women's full participation in the labor force, just not when they are young, but throughout every stage of their working life. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pranathanga from UNFPA Sri Lanka. We are now ready to start our panel discussion. And I just would like to share the objectives of this afternoon's session. It's twofold. First, we'd like to highlight the impact of menopause of women and the workforce, including health challenges, stigma, discriminatory practices, and the lack of an enabling work environment in Sri Lanka. The second objective is to look at how can we really collectively identify and brainstorm about some strategies and joint initiatives across multiple stakeholders. I would, before I invite the panelists on stage, allow me to take a couple of, just a few more seconds to introduce to you the format of this afternoon's panel discussion. It's going to take 2 main rounds of questions to each of the panelists, after which we will have some final concluding remarks and hopefully leave some time before lunch. I know everyone looks forward to that moment, but maybe about 10 to 15 minutes for a engaging in discussion with the audience and all of you here today. So with that, may I briefly introduce and call our fellow panelists onto stage. Dr. Harsha Athapattu will strengthen our understanding of the clinical and personal experiences of menopause of women in the workplace. I believe he needs no introduction with all of you all here today. He is the incumbent president of the Menopause Society. Dr. Kodituwakku, can I invite you on stage? Maybe a round of applause as he comes. Our next panelist is Dr. Vindhya Kumarapalli, who will share insights on shaping public health and workplace policies and best practices for menopause support. Dr. Vindhya is a specialist in community medicine, currently serving as the Director, Policy Analysis and Development. She's also the Director, National STD and AIDS Control at the Ministry of Health, and she counts for nearly 20 years of experience in public health. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Vindhya. And last but never least, a lawyer by profession, Ms. Tanuja Jayawardena from private sector, a leading apparel company, MS Holdings, who will engage and emerge the business case for menopause, inclusive workplaces, driving productivity and retention. Tanuja leads the Women Go Beyond team at MAS, driving initiatives for women's empowerment and gender equality. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Tanuja. Welcome to all of the panelists. With this, I would like to hand over to Dr. Hemant, who is the chair and my co-moderator of the panel discussion, to set the stage and share his opening remarks.
Yes, it's quite an interesting as well as timely topic, as you all agree that this is a country in crisis in economy, and we have about 52% of female population in this country, in contrast to the global about 49. Our female education is overtaking the men as well, particularly in tertiary education. But strangely, peak employment age of women in this country is around 40 to 44, in contrast to men going up to about 50. And when we look at the reasons why this is happening, very interesting facts come out. They discuss about social, cultural, economic and structural factors, but not health. Very strange. Because mismanaged menopause can actually lead to significant reduction of women coming out of employment or not getting enrolled for employment around the midlife. Now, if you don't address this, there's no question that we cannot come out of this crisis, because educated women are at home and not getting employed, or even in the lower unemployed sort of opportunities, menopause and related issues can actually shun them away from employment. So today's panel discussion, I think, is very opportune, particularly applicable to our country in this situation. So I personally feel it's time that the policymakers sat and got their act together, which I don't think so, going by the participation here today, right from the top downwards. Despite having female prime ministers and all, I'm not going to read details. But we have a task force, a national task force, which is supposed to be looking at this, not the employment thing, not the economic thing, but they will have to understand that these are intertwined. There is no question of looking at health aspects, forgetting the health economics. So with this introduction, I would like to, I might actually hand over back to you. Yes, why not? Yes, this is your business unit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hemant. So now on to the panel discussion. Thank you for those thought-provoking words and really reiterating the urgency and relevance of what we are about to discuss. So I would like to just share that round one is going to be on understanding the status quo vis-a-vis the impact of menopause and also some of the current initiatives that we have. And if you could proceed, I would like to direct my first question to Dr. Harsha. The symptoms of menopause impacts the confidence of women at work, and this loss of confidence leads women to really question whether they're able to show up and perform in the way that they used to. So my question to you is this, Dr. Kodituwakku. Would you please share with us how does menopause impact employee performance and well-being beyond the physical symptoms? How do the lesser discussed psychological and emotional aspects of menopause affect the women at work?
Thank you very much. Now you know that the menopause is not just hot flashes and osteoporosis, it is much broader. So, and the major biological transition that the lack of estrogen affects not only the woman's ovaries, but it affects the entire body, all the systems, including the brain and also the emotions. So the consequences, the mood swings, then the anxiety and the panic attacks are expected, and low self-confidence, and with along with the menopause, the aging also happens, so the women become thin, or the normal expectation is for them to become less active, less attractive, and so on. So definitely they will have an effect on their self-confidence, and there will be cognitive challenges like memory lapses and poor concentration and sleep disorders, which lead to daytime fatigability, irritability, and reduced emotional silence. So they are not mild inconveniences, not because they are less capable, but because the health does not support them anymore. And they will have difficulty in managing the workplace, even the household activities. So what will this lead to? Especially, so there will be reduced productivity. So not because there is lack of skill or motivation, but the mental exhaustion, difficulty in concentration, and disturbed sleep affect their day-to-day life. And increased absenteeism or presenteeism, all they are working in whatever they are doing, they will not be able to cope up as they could before. And this will lead to withdrawal from leadership and career progression, and there will be social isolation. And I must say that the male superiors at this juncture, that on this age, they don't understand what the hell this menopause is. So actually, they will think that this lady who is undergoing the menopausal transition is going mad. So their attribution and their understanding of menopause may be completely different. So what will happen is the woman will have to suffer in silence. So they won't come out with what they have. So take a woman who is in her 50s, who has been working in a very good position or having a leadership, or even at the household, who are looking after children and doing so many household work. With the menopause, they will not be able to cope up with what she has been doing before. And she will think, what is wrong with me? Because she will also not understand what she is undergoing. And menopause is not a part of the workplace, and it is a taboo, and irrelevant in the workplace policy. So what I suggest is we need to think of menopause inclusive workplace, where we acknowledge that there is something called menopause and there is no control over this of the woman, and we need to accept and help them to come out with this transition period. So emotional, cognitive, and psychological burden that they undergo should be addressed. So there should be education and awareness for them. It is just not a woman's issue, it is a workplace, the well-being of not the woman, it is the well-being of the workplace. And we should help them to build up their mental health and mental support, and there should be programs what we do like with mass weddings. There should be training of managers, and they should be made aware of what menopause. So We should support them rather than sideline, and not only the individual, but the whole system will benefit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hashram. Thank you for kind of really shining a light on the effects and the knock-on, like how those effects really cascade down to affecting productivity and confidence of women in the workplace. Therein exacerbating on also the many barriers and impediments they face for their participation and career advancement at work. I would like to now turn on to Dr. Vindhya with a question that goes like this. When we consider Sri Lanka's healthcare landscape and current public health priorities, what initiatives or frameworks are currently in place or being considered by the Ministry of Health to support women navigating menopause, particularly concerning their workforce participation?
Thank you, Anu. So I hope you can see my slides, yes. So at the moment, menopause is not given explicit attention in our national health programs, and women's health services actually tend to focus mainly on reproductive years, and there is limited visibility or support for the health challenges women face during this midlife and beyond, as Dr. Atapattu mentioned clearly. So but we have several policy frameworks that offer opportunities to change this. For example, the National Health Policy 2016-2025, which expires this year, talks about universal access, equity and healthcare across the lifespan. However, it does not directly address menopause. And then we have the National Maternal and Child Health Policy, which was launched in 2012, that also focuses on reproductive health, but highlights the need for continuity of care through the woman's life. And the policy also encourages empowering women with the information and the services, something that is relevant to addressing the silence and the stigma around menopause. Most importantly, we are drafting the National Health Policy for the next 10 years, that is from 2026 to 2035, and of course the next policy will be the National Policy for Health and Well-being, and it takes a life course approach. So at the moment we are having a series of dialogues, and the policy would formally recognize the health needs in midlife and aging. And the upcoming policy will also link health with economic development, and this will create a strong case for supporting women's health during menopause, as it especially affects the ability to stay in the workforce. And then about the services, there are existing service platforms like the Well Women's Clinic, the Healthy Lifestyle Centers, and health promotion settings. But these are not giving the services as expected for menopause, but these can be expanded to provide menopause education, symptom management, as well as the necessary referrals. So we don't have to build something entirely new. So in summary, in terms of your question, Anu, although there are still gaps, we do have a policy base and also service platforms that can be strengthened to better support women through menopause, and especially for balancing work and health.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vindhya, for sharing what's the policy in place, but also that the emphasis kind of lies a little bit stronger on reproductive health, and that we can use that as an opportunity to really strengthen in the next health policy cycle. Over to my third panelist here today, Tanuja from MAS Holdings. As we know, menopause is not just a health issue, it's way beyond. It's a workplace issue, economic issue, and a societal one. Creating menopause inclusive workplaces is crucial for retaining the female talent, fostering a diverse and equitable environment. So my question to you is in that regard, from a corporate perspective, Tanuja, how can menopause policies really intersect with broader diversity, equity and inclusion goals, which is, I know, top priority for corporates in Sri Lanka? And also, what do you see as the tangible benefits of addressing menopause? In your response, could I ask that you share some concrete examples of how MAS Holdings, for example, prioritizes? Thank you.
Thanks, Anu, and thank you for having me. I'm very, very pleased to be here amongst all this expertise. MAS has been working with the Menopause Society, and I really must say, Dr. Hemantha, Dr. Piyusha, we're very grateful to all of the knowledge that you've shared with us and how much you've supported us in the work we've done. MAS Holdings, as you know, is in the apparel sector, and for us, we are a privileged sector in that sense because we have thousands of women in our workplaces in countries where labor force participation of women is low. So looking at health and well-being for women overall has been part of our agenda for over 21 years now. We have a program which we call Women Go Beyond, which looks at life cycle events for women from menarche to menopause. The menopause work is relatively new though, because as you mentioned, Dr. Vindya, a lot of the focus has been on the reproductive years. So we start work looking at menstruation, menstrual health, hygiene, nutrition, and then of course pregnancy, childbirth, postnatal care, and all of that work, because for us, with thousands of women in our workforce, it's necessary to have that level of care, education, because we have women coming in at the age of 18. So if you take our factories, we have 3,000, 4,000 women in one location sometimes. So for all businesses, in our view, looking at overall women's health is necessary. It is about productivity, yes, but it is also about human rights. It is also about making sure that we contribute as businesses to genuinely sustainable communities and countries. Menopause work started about 3 years ago for us. Although we had been looking at doing some education and awareness work, we also struggled to really understand how to approach the subject. There wasn't enough that we knew, and when we reached out, we were not able to find the right resources. But when we connected with the Menopause Society, that's when we really learned how to first build the information to share with our colleagues. The same way we had been doing the awareness on all of the other reproductive health issues, menopause is something that we do a lot of awareness around now, for men and women both, because it's necessary that men and women both understand. So for us, we have 90,000 plus employees globally. That means we are able to take this conversation out, not only to our employees, but their families. And we also, with the work we did with the Menopause Society, with the doctors here, we were able to create content that we trained trainers in-house so that they could go out within our organization, but also to the communities, to talk about also, because like I said, we have women coming in from the age of 18, to also understand that this is not something you need to start thinking about when you're 40 or post 40. So we do have that ability also to take the nutritional advice, health, exercise, all of those necessary things women need to focus on, because we also realize women don't spend enough time on their own health. Because again, a lot of focus is on the childbearing ages, child care after that, and not necessarily on your own health. So we do a lot of work around nutrition, health, we have medical clinics, we have a lot of work we do, of course, around breast cancer and cervical cancer. Again, cervical cancer was an area that was difficult to step into because the testing is considered either taboo or uncomfortable. But I must say, we connect with the Ministry of Health officers and locations close to all our factories, and we get incredible support. Something that we also do is encourage women to use the facilities that are out there, provided by the government sector. In Sri Lanka especially, we see that a lot of the services are very robust. There are doctors, there are services, there are people in that entire network who are very open to helping, supporting, training, teaching, doing the clinics. Unfortunately, again, women either don't have the time or don't understand how important it is to get those services. So some of the work we do is really encouraging, having the clinics within our facilities, but also in giving people the time to go and get tested, get the support they need. Bottom line, I think for us as a business, it is really looking at inclusivity from the point of view of, otherwise menopause becomes yet another reason to discriminate. Because before the conversation was around, oh, you have to give maternity leave. And that was a problem. Or, you know, women have to look after children, childcare. There isn't enough support or infrastructure for that. Elder care, not enough support or infrastructure. At the end of the day, we lose talent, we lose educated people who can be contributing. We want to make sure that as we do education and awareness across the board, especially sensitizing managers on how to support and address, we need support from the healthcare system to be able to say, this is not a reason to say, oh, we don't want to hire women, or we don't want to promote her or give her that next opportunity, and exacerbate the biases that are already there. So some of the work we did with the doctors here actually was a very positive message, which I think was helpful. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you so much, Tanuja, for kind of really emphasizing self-care beyond childbearing, but also kind of very much aligned with UNFPA's mandate from menarche to menopause and the rights-based approach that you'll follow. I would just maybe like to, before we move on to round two, just ask Dr. Hemantha for some initial reactions.
Yeah, I know. I mean, sometimes you may regret that. Because I do hold backs most of the time, but you are my sort of oil on troubled water, so you are there, no? So, yeah, you want to say something before that? Fine. Well, I think all of you understood now that overall people are noticing this. Noticing that women are important. And women in midlife are very important. In that respect, we are very glad that in 2000 we started this. So 25 years later, from what you see here, you can see how far behind the other thinkers are. That's not a blame. It's just that we have been thinking about the overall picture and the overall future, whereas most of the time agencies, governments, employers will have to think short term. The productivity, how much money to be spent during this year, you know, that sort of thing, right? Because governments are about politics and politicians are interested in power, and the power changes hands every few years. So they have to be focused on avenues of getting power rather than thinking of what will happen in 25 years. So that is the bottom line. Now, but as I told you, we are in a crisis, so we have to address this. Now, I can see that the gaps in this are getting now exposed. Health Ministry side, they have looked at certain areas where improvements can be made into inroads. Private sector, yes, quite correctly, Tanuja said that she was very happy that we were there, and we are very happy that you came forward, and that's a model for others to think about something which is not obvious when you look at a woman. Now, if you were to just get an example of physical demands, estate worker, supermarket worker, apparel worker, menopause is affecting the output of all these people. And what is it affecting ultimately? Country's economy. Let's take the other side, because the tertiary education in this country is high, managerial aspects. You get a school principal. She reaches the peak of her job around menopause, and she continues to work beyond that. And every now and then you will see that they are having emotional outbursts, managing issues in the schools and all that. Do we understand there's something behind this? It's about time we understood. So we have this interministerial, approach which we have to come to, rather than putting it on the shoulders of health ministry alone. I am personally, one day, if a woman in this country sues the government, saying that you didn't prevent my osteoporotic fracture, what did you tell me? What did you give me? Did you do anything to prevent my osteoporotic fracture? If you told me, I would have done that. That will expose the whole heap, the can of worms, because we have not educated them, we have not prevented them, we have not prevented their sarcopenia, all that. So, this is the picture I got when I was listening to these three speakers, that we can definitely move forward, and we probably can make a model. So, with that, I'll hand over to my more diplomatic partner.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hemanta. So, this is really strong words in terms of commitments and things that we can look forward to. I think by next year we'll have the model rolling, hopefully, at least piloted. Let's shoot for that with all the stakeholders. So on to round two, where we really want to lay the emphasis on the way forward, key strategies, how we should really come together to drive collaborative initiatives. I would like to remind my panelists that this round is going to be a little bit more kind of rapid and quick. Maybe we can limit our responses to 2 to 3 minutes. And again, I'd like to turn to Dr. Harsha with the first question. What are the key medical advice or self-management strategies on how women can mitigate the impact of menopausal symptoms at work? Also, how can, from the healthcare provider's perspective, better equip women with this knowledge? Please do share about tools, trainings, communications, which you feel would be most effective for management and to support menopausal employees.
Now, to answer that question, we have to have 3 thoughts when we embark on a program like that. That should be something that we could include in the workplace, like just what we do in MENOSOC, but the help that we give. And our goals should be realistic, and they should be culturally acceptable. Because there are Sri Lanka is a multicultural, multi-social country, so whatever we do should be socially acceptable. So in short, what women can do for themselves. Then it comes to what Dr. Hemanta said. Have we educated them on what they could do? So there are simple things like hydration and cooling themselves. Enough things to drink. How many workplaces have enough disposals or where you can get drinking water for women or who have hot flushes or whatever? And nutrition. Have we educated them on a balanced diet, what they should eat, what they should not eat? The weight gain, that is something that comes along with aging and menopause. So have we given the message, passed the message to our women? A regular exercise, at least 20 days, 20 minutes of walking a day, which is recommended. Then mental well-being, breathing exercises, peer groups, just to chatting around with the women of same age who have undergone the same life event. And do we give the medical support? How many women are capable of speaking to a healthcare personnel openly? Do we encourage, especially among women who are in this age group? So just like that, Dr. Hemanta said, a principal who is undergoing the menopause transition, does she have time to go and meet a healthcare personnel to speak what she is having? So, and on the other hand, if a patient or one of these women need hormonal replacement therapy. Is it available to a fair cost? The HRT is very, very expensive, and I don't think a normal woman in our country can afford HRT at all. And then, what are the responsibilities or the role of the healthcare worker? We need to integrate menopause education into routine checkups. We need to integrate that into our educational curriculums. We have been trying to incorporate this about the knowledge about the menopause into the curricula of the teachers, the students, and even we have problems of integrating it into the curricula of the nurses and the midwives, and provide a clear cultural sensitive material in both languages, Sinhala and Tamil, for all women who are in Sri Lanka. If you talk about the literacy rate, it goes beyond 90%, but still do we have enough material for them to read about this? And train midwives, public health nurses, and the community people, volunteers, to address the menopause, because they are the first point of contact. We have a very good established system of midwives, but I don't think, other than the Menopause Society, did any awareness programs for the midwives to carry on with or address the problems of these women. And it needs to include mental health screening, which is very important. And menopause is a whole body, whole life issue, not mere just 51, you enter in menopause, full stop. No, it's not. And what are the tools and training and communication that the manager should have? And we don't have to do it alone. You have help. You can build up workplace groups, and we need to do the awareness programs of managers, just like what we have been doing. And again, I want to stress, never forget males. The men, the manager, the male managers, male executives, because they need to understand what is happening. Because as we have been talking throughout, we emphasized on the maternity care and the reproductive health, not the menopause so far. And there should be a toolkit for the employers to be practical, to guide for the managers, explaining what is menopause, how to affect work, how it support the employees, and the systems that we put on, or the things that we suggest should be flexible policies. Because with advancing knowledge, changing knowledge, we need to have a flexible time. And open channels for communication, and the most powerful thing that a manager can do without being anything is to listen and without being judgmental. Very important to respond flexibly and respect menopause. And that costs nothing. That costs nothing, but it changes everything. And there should be three-way partnership between women, healthcare, and the employees. That knowledge and the tools should be accessible, and it has to be stigma-free care, and it should be supportive, flexible environment. Strength, resilience, and continuity of our entire workforce should maintain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hashan. I think there will be more on the three-way partnership as the discussion continues, and with the leadership of the Menopause Society in the months and years to come. Over to Dr. Vindhya. We'd really like to hear your experiences and insights on how do you feel the Ministry of Health could collaborate with employees, the same three-way partnership that Dr. Hashan just referred to really, and other government agencies towards such joint initiatives. Dr. Vindhya?
Okay, thank you. So actually I think Dr. Hemant already mentioned about the collaborations. To have these menopause inclusive workplaces in our country, the Ministry of Health can take the lead in working with other key government bodies as well as the corporate sector. In terms of key government bodies, we need to collaborate with the Ministries of Labour, Women's Affairs, Finance, Education and Public Administration, to name a few, for this coordinated and multi-sectoral response. So again, about this, how to address this as a main stakeholder, the Ministry of Health, actually, we need to develop national guidelines together. I must emphasize that these should be developed together to help employers to adopt menopause-friendly HR policies. For example, maybe Tanuja can explain further during her time, in her talk. These HR policies should include flexible leave options, access to counseling and workplace wellness services. And as I mentioned earlier, I like to emphasize that we have to develop these together. Not just the government partners, the employers, the trade unions, and also if there are any women's group. Second one I like to mention is, I know Tanuja also mentioned this, how they collaborate with the existing services. We do have several existing platforms, as I mentioned earlier, the Well Women Clinic program, and then the Healthy Lifestyle Centers. We have primary healthcare services, an extended network of primary healthcare services, and we also have workplace health promotion programs. So we have to integrate the menopause education and other counseling programs to these existing platforms. Then the third important one I like to mention is we need to set national benchmarks for menopause inclusive workplaces, and it's very important that we collect data and develop indicators. For example, indicators like absenteeism, staff retention, and service update should be in the national reporting system. And at the moment, we do not have any such indicators in our national reporting systems, although we do have a very well-established reproductive health reporting system managed by the Family Health Bureau. Then I would also like to suggest that maybe we can launch pilot projects in selected institutions together, not just the corporate sector, the state sector and the corporate sector together, maybe with support packages covering awareness, mental health support, ergonomic changes, and even peer support groups. And just that although the policies that I mentioned in the first round emphasizes the life course approach and the value of working across sectors, we do not really have any actionable information to share that is offered to the midlife women. And so I would say that menopause support in the workplace is not just a health issue, as mentioned by the other panelists. It's a next step in gender responsive policy process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vindhya. Those are some very pertinent points. And we quickly move on to Tanuja. We'd just really like to hear from you beyond the policies. How do we really create that enabling environment, and where is the commitment coming from corporates like yourself?
I think the doctors mentioned a few things that we are already doing. Flexible work, for instance, is something that we rolled out. Manufacturing sector is very, very difficult because we have a workforce that is at a machine. But for the factory worker, you can swap shifts when you're on a shift. But overall, for all our workforce, men and women, for different requirements, we've rolled out flexible work. And what we found is inclusion also means that then we're not only doing it because of a group of people who are dealing with menopause or another group that is dealing with elder care or something like that, but we're looking at inclusivity in terms of the different life needs that people have. So having flexible work means for sure for women, whether it is with pregnancy, whether it is childcare, whether it is menopause, it makes makes a huge difference. It sometimes becomes the decision between continuing to work or quitting. Also having peer groups, networks, some of the work we've done in terms of educating awareness, creating video content, means that you get that message out to a broader population. And you have more women who are now less ashamed to talk about it. So that's something we're seeing in our workplaces. Because we did a lot of the awareness work and we continue to do it, women now feel like they can have a candid conversation with their managers, with their peers. They're reaching out to each other. I've had senior leaders who came and said, Tandra, I'm okay to come and share my story. So that other women also don't feel like this is something embarrassing. I think that unlock in terms of feeling safe at work to share what is a very normal life event helps you to be more productive and to feel like you can deliver without having to suppress. Another thing we see is men and women both really understanding what the situation is and some of these support mechanisms and tools that the doctors are talking about and having access to those things. Also, really, really important is breaking the taboo and the stigma. Because it should not be about women coming out and needing help. We don't want to talk about it at the workplace or in the community as women need this. I think one of the doctors said it really nicely. It is a workplace need so that we have the talent and we have the skill that is necessary. That's, I think, everything from me. I think I covered some of this, but the toolkit that you mentioned would be really helpful for us as private sector and as corporates because it helps us to understand what next. How do we support, whether it's insurance policies, leave policies, things like that. For us, just one last thing, we monitor these things on a social sustainability tool. So it is written, it is tracked and measured to make sure the work is done. So for other corporates as well, making sure it is not just something you do once or twice or one-off, that having that leadership commitment becomes important.
Thank you so much, Tanuja. To wrap up the insights, and I would just invite all four of my esteemed panelists, and it's going to be even more rapid fire. 1 minute, concluding thoughts. What is the commitment from us here today? What's the call for action? And with that, we'll move on to the Q&A session. So over to Dr. Yeah, just one minute to sum up. What's going to change?
I think we need to change the way that we think. That is the most important. And menopause is neglected. In Sri Lanka, if you take at 49, all women are dropped from the services that they have been getting because where eligible couples registries finished at 49. So the problem starts then. And let's take it as a beginning and address the problem. So that is the whole story about our theme, investment for the next 25 years. Because most of the women are going to live more than 25 years from now onwards.
So what I like to sum up is that although menopause has been not very much emphasized in the previous national health policy or the maternal and child health policy, in the upcoming next 10-year national health policy, which will be named as the National Policy for Health and Well-being, not just health. So we can very clearly understand addressing menopause would be part of well-being of the women in our country. So in future, this will be, the menopause will be given due emphasis in the national health policies, and at the same time, it is at the moment that not very much addressed in the preventive health programs of our country, although our preventive health system is very strongly grounded. So definitely this phase of life would be given due emphasis in the national preventive health programs and also in the government sector workplaces. So I hope that in that way we can retain the skilled women in the workforce, protect their well-being and move closer to gender equity. Thank you.
Education awareness conversation to make sure women are comfortable to ask for help, know what they need to do to help themselves, but also understand that there is a positive narrative around menopause, that it does not have to be the end of your life, you don't have to curl up and give up, that corporates step in to share that message. What can you do? How do we work through this? And make sure the narrative is a positive one about progress, about moving forward, rather than it being a problem.
30 seconds. Thank you, Kananja. So with that, we can move on to, and again, thank you to this, I would really call for a round of applause to this, to the panelists. Thank you so much. That was insightful, it felt constructive, and like we're ready to go, all the information is there. Of course, we have regional and global best practices as well. Through the Menopause Society, we would like to now open the floor for questions. I would like to share, I think, one of the FM mics with somebody who can come to take it around. Maybe raise your hand, say your name and the organization or institute you represent. Keep this question concise and addressed to maybe a certain panel member or the panel at large. That's fine. I think we can take maybe about 5 questions before I invite Dr. Hemantha for wrap up. Gentleman in the front here, and then we can share.
Thank you, panelists, for enlightening me about the subject. It's a big problem, which I can understand now. But I would like to share my experience. Oh, I'm Dr. Pawan Sultania from Nepal. I'm a neurosurgeon by profession, and that's I accompanied my spouse to this place. But I'm very surprised to understand about this menopause problem. I never realized, because in my workforce, at least I have got 70% of the workforce is female, and out of that, no one ever shared this problem with me. Rather, childbearing age was more problematic for me to tackle them rather than the menopausal, because they may be the educated one, they never share this problem. But it is a great problem affecting the work output, that now I understand, but it never happened to me in my place. So I am just confused what it is, and probably in days to come I may be learning. Anyhow, thank you for the enlightening with this subject. Thank you.
Can I come in, please? Yes. I'm a physician. I was just thinking, we are discussing this subject among medical circles, how much among lay people is this known? Now say, if there is a lady going through menopause, becomes unmanageable in your workplace, say, MS or wherever, when you look into, say, any complaint, do you ever consider that this menopause may be the cause of this problem? And if a teacher behaves in a very irrational way, punishing children and all that, there's an inquiry. Do they ever consider that menopause could be responsible for this? I don't think so. And how can the workplace get themselves adjusted to tackle the problems of menopause? Unless, say, you get hold of all the ladies around 40, 45 and keep informing them beforehand. You are about to enter a phase where these things can happen. So you better be ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you. That is very, I don't know, did you see my notes? Anyway, Sarath, coming from Sarath, who is a very experienced physician, that is the type of comment we expect anyway. Thank you, Sarath.
Can I just say something to that? Very quickly, only to say that at workplace, we also want to be very careful that while we create awareness that women can come forward, ask for support, understand what to do, we don't also want to leave a situation where immediately when there's a grievance, we jump to it must be hormonal or menopausal. So we just want to be very cautious of that also.
Thank you for those last 2 points, which I think are really important. In the UK, over the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a massive increase in the interest in menopause because of the involvement of various celebrities. And through particularly social media, they've put the whole thing on the map. The downside is that now everything is blamed on the hormones. And as I think you said, not everything is due to hormones. Life has its problems as well. And also there is an incredible emphasis on more is better. And so you do have women on the most ridiculous amounts of estrogen. So take care in your education to try and keep it tempered. I think everything that's going on is great, but you may have some unintended consequences as well, which is always difficult. And the group who are anti-medicalisation of menopause will come out very strongly and say, you're undermining us, this is not good. So one needs to think it all through beforehand. So very interesting though, thank you.
Thank you so much for that word of caution. I think Dr. Hemantha will address in his wrap up and closing. If we don't have any more pressing urgent questions, over to
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think we're running out of time as well. Yes, thank you all the panelists, thank you, and Anushika, thank you. So in summing up, as you all from our country know, that this government came up through the votes of women, right? That's my feeling. And it's about 1 year now. It's about time we got them to think about women. So I'm just thinking, if all women in this country go on sick leave for 1 day, this country collapses. No question about that. Then they will take notice and say, oh goodness me, these women have been holding the country. You see? So, without coming to that, if we can change our policies and if we can get together, yes, that's fine. So from housewives to salaried employment and for women doing both, there is a definite midlife issue, health issue, which is going to worsen with our changing of population dynamics, which is happening rapidly in this country. In another 20 odd years, the population graph is completely upside down, and there will be few earners and a huge amount of people to look after. So unless those people are healthy, the few earners will not be able to maintain the health balance in this country. So hopefully governments understand that, but as I told you, it doesn't happen within a period of a government, so sometimes they don't want to think long term, but we must get them to think. So we have a dual problem here, already affected women, and how to prevent the future. People getting affected. That starts from schools. So you all touched upon that. We have to educate. For example, the bone balance in the body has to be developed during younger days. Menopause is not even in the horizon. But by the time menopause reaches, we have lost the battle. So there are many areas where we can actually work together. One of the issues menopause society faced, particularly with the government or the health ministry, is when people have domain issues. This is our domain. You don't tell us what to do. We know what to do. I hope this discussion really exposed the gaps where that thinking has to go out of the windows. We have to work for women. From my mother to my wife to my daughter to all the women, we are responsible. Men create chaos. Women work. There's no question about that. As experienced consultants, we know that in the hospitals would have never been able to run unless the women workforce did their job. Doctors don't come on time most of the time. We have to shove them up and say, come on time. But the nurses have never, ever got late. They run to the workplace. I've seen this. So I always admire the female workforce and what we can do as medical professionals, other professionals, the private sector, the managers, everybody, we have to get together and work for this common goal, and I'm sure we can come out with solutions. And as Marianne quite correctly pointed out, we should know the balance. We should know that we cannot mitigate everything by putting it on menopause, yes, but all that can come out when we sit together, forget who gets the cake sort of thing, for doing this, and go for a common goal, because as I told earlier also, women hold this country. Thank you.
Thank you once again for the participation. We can now conclude the panel discussion.
Thank you very much. That was truly an interesting session. I cordially invite the chairpersons to award the certificates to the speakers. And I would also like to invite Professor Piyush Kodituwakku, past president of Menopause Society of Sri Lanka, to award the certificates to the chairpersons. Now, Professor Piyush Kodituwakku will award the certificate to Dr. Hemantha Perera and Ms. Anushika Amarasingh. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pause for lunch. Please remember to visit the exhibition stalls offering a range of products for women of midlife and beyond. And please be seated by 2 p.m. for our next session. Thank you.